We're in the grounds adjacent to Berkeley Castle in glorious Gloucester. And here this weekend we are having a wonderful military vehicle display, not present day serving military vehicles, but old soldiers, those that served sometimes during World War II, a couple before, and some after. Well, just arrived on its low loader is a very interesting little tank. What makes people collect a tank? Well, I know when we were kids we used to love to have a tank to play with, but I suppose boys will be boys as long as they live, and here we have the full-size thing. Lots of preparation in how to unload. A nice modern bit of hydraulics working here, somewhat different than the method they used to unload this old tank when she was first built. This particular tank is a M3A1. It was built by the American Car and Foundry Company. Many of them supplied to our own forces here in England. It was known in this country as the Honey, and by the US Army it was known as the Stuart. Fitted with two particular types of radial engine, one by Guberson Buda and the other one the well-known Continental. Skillful eyes watch as everything is checked to make sure that all is well. There's a lot of skill acquired by these military vehicle owners, not having had military training, as would have been the case with a 3-month course perhaps back during wartime. Well, she's fired up, and by the look of the T sign on the side, you see the T number there, the T prefix shows that it's an armoured vehicle. We all had different letter prefixes in the British Army during World War II, and it's got the red tactical sign on the back to show its particular division or brigade. There she is now on terra firma, the Black Bear, eh? Rather an aggressive name for a dear little tank like that, isn't it? Small she may be, but no doubt with a history of some note. A lot of these owners delve into the history of their various vehicles. They belong to the Military Vehicle Trust and various other groups. The Military Vehicle Trust is about the biggest of its kind in this country, and you can join that without a military vehicle if you wish, if you're interested in just that type of thing, and you can share information and learn all sorts about your own particular vehicle or its history from that particular association. With a bit more skill, she's now mated up to an American-style trailer. The purpose of that being, well, that's the accommodation box. And onto the field she comes, over the bridge, to join up with other military vehicles. When these vehicles were first built, they weren't built for fun, but there's a lot of fun had now at these particular weekends. And not only military vehicles, we have lots of displays here. The British Legion have a wonderful display here showing their purposeful job, and onto the field comes the big Brit there, the big Scammo constructor. There's no doubt that that old soldier did a lot of heavy crafting during its service with the British Army, probably during the 60s. Now happily towing some rather ample living accommodation. People chatting about various vehicles and looking for photographs to take, and there, posed beautifully, is the ever popular 2.5 ton Jimmy, the GMC 6x6. And something of a later nature, the Land Rover, the lightweight portable.
Will recall that 50 years ago on May the 14th, and up to now there's well over 500 attempts.
And what prettier than the little MW Bedford, the 1500 weight of World War II, proudly displaying the div sign of the 4th Armoured Div. And here you see the Z number on the side of this vehicle, showing that she's a 1500 weight. Super little trucks these, with the 28 horsepower Bedford engine that went on through not only the 3-tonners, but the 3-ton 4x4, the famous QL, a well-tried engine and a well-tried military vehicle, ever popular. Well, if you can't afford a big one, make a little one to please the kids. Something rather different here now. This is one of the United Nations ambulances from the 70s. Not so much a paramedic vehicle now, but a nice bit of living accommodation for those who attend the rallies. And the well-worn old Austin Katie, that was the nickname given to the K2. Hundreds of thousands of these vehicles built for civil defense and military purposes. And this particular one is done up in the American Red Cross. It did appear in a well-known film. The mobile canteen, and she's done up in that guy's here now. Must get myself a cup of tea there later. I wonder if it tastes like the old Naffy tea of way back. I don't see a lot of service there. Oh well, perhaps later. Aren't they a pretty little vehicle? Many of these vehicles of this size were driven by ATS girls during the war. In fact, our Queen, I believe, drove one of these on one occasion. A very popular Austin Katie. That's a little bit different, built by Internationals of America. This is a half-track. As you can see, Internationals and Whites built these. One can tell the difference from the outside appearance, because on the White there would be a flange down the side of the front mudguard. The White would have a 6-cylinder side valve engine, and the International is seen here, a 6-cylinder overhead valve engine. Fully armed? Well, deactivated armament, of course. Very well equipped. It's amazing the money and time these owners spend just looking around their auto jumbos and various collections to find the appropriate equipment. And of course a bit of research to get them back to their proper military numbers. Quite fast on the road, these half-tracks too. Cruising at 50 miles an hour was no problem in these, which was very fast for a wartime vehicle. And these particular vehicles went on used by the Israelis and other armies for many, many years up until just recently. Lined up with the small ones here. I see the Austin Champ in the foreground, down to the Land Rovers and Jeeps. And the Stars and Stripes supporters are in abundance. And that vicious little vehicle there, that's called the Ferret. It derived from a very famous vehicle of World War II called the Daimler Dingo. It is a Daimler design, but this has got a little turret on. And instead of the Daimler engine, they now have the Rolls-Royce B-Series engine, this 4-cylinder version. Semi-automatic gearbox, sort of a pre-selector job. Great fun for the youngsters. Must it be wonderful when Dad owns a vehicle like this? Having a good look at the B-Series engine, Rolls-Royce built the B-Series engines in the B40, B60 and B80, that being 4, 6 or 8 cylinder versions, with interchangeable components, which was an ideal setup for military purposes after World War II. All set up now, proudly on display, the great Scammell, a wonderful firm from Watford who specialised in heavy and very heavy vehicles. I think it's fair to say that Scammell took on when steam sort of left off to be the lead. They were in the forefront, they were the leaders in heavy haulage. And there, proudly displaying the 11th Armoured Div sign, is another little Bedford MW with an artillery square with number 73 on, and its tactical sign above that. Well displayed, this one, with the bridge plate on the front, number 4, that's a tonnage plate for its bridge, and it's attractively done up in what was known as the Mickey Mouse camouflage. And on the back here we have a number plate, but of course that's only for present day law requirements. During the war that was not necessary. Well, she's going to have an amble around the ring now to show herself off to the onlookers who just take note and take photographs of these famous old military vehicles. Something different now. This is built by Austin of England. One of the big 3-ton 4x4s built in post-war period. Once again with the armoured div sign on there and the artillery markings on the right wing. Some of these particular vehicles were fitted with a multi-fuel engine. They could run on, of course, either diesel or petrol, depending what was available at the time. Pulling the correct trailer too, and flying the correct flag. A rare Land Rover, this one. Land Rovers made such a variety of vehicles. Now, don't let me ever hear you say just another Land Rover. This particular one, there are only 2 built like this. It's a mobile photography processing van. And the chap, a very interesting chap who owns this, has done a lot of history research on it. It was used on Salisbury Plain for drogue recovery. But it's nothing to do with photography up in the back now. That's where Chris has his bed. And collections of militaria, they are many. You can just see the Berkeley Castle over there in the background. Wonderful grounds, wonderful setting, which always helps the show. And this one, of course, has a 2-ton bridge plate. During the war, all the bridges in the country had a plate such as this on them, and if you came across one of those bridges with a lower number than that on your vehicle, then you didn't go across. Another of our portable lightweights. Quite quick as far as Land Rovers go were these. These could be disassembled and taken up into large aircraft and taken to their destination. Now they've come out of the services, a lot of these have been snapped up by the farming community. It's quite a cheap and a very efficient little pickup. It's nice to know that the family enjoy the fun of these weekends as well. If dad or mum has got the support of the rest of the family, well then it makes things a lot easier. When you look up and tell them, I'm sorry, we can't go to the Costa What's It this year because I want some new tracks for the tank, then you're up against problems. But invariably you find that the family take part in these events and enjoy it very much indeed. The old Series 1 Land Rover there, really stripped for service. Now there's a Jeep. Well, we can't have a show without a Jeep, can we? This one's done up in British marking. See the M on that was the light car marking for the British vehicles. The Jeep was designed in America and has been supplied to many, many countries. They're either Ford or Willys, little 4-cylinder side valve engine in. And I suppose it's safe to say that magic little vehicle was the forerunner of the very popular 4x4s you see today. And this old 3-tonner, in absolutely beautiful condition because it was bought with a very low mileage on it, was bought for the AFS, the Auxiliary Fire Service. Many of these Comers were built for the AFS and the Civil Defence, belonging to the Green Goddess Fleet, along with their brethren, the Bedfords. Not only do they drive around the ring for display, but a lot of these are driven right the way to the show from their destination, which is sometimes well over 100 miles. Quite an expensive game when you consider that a lot of these lorries, such as the Comer there, would travel at about 8 or 10 miles per gallon. You've got to be enthusiastic to bring these military vehicles on parade. Authentic uniforms are the order of the day, and pointing over there to a very interesting exhibit, the Abbott, a post-war self-propelled gun of British manufacture. Quite a quick machine too, and the operator of this particular vehicle gave some wonderful displays, tearing around the ring with this one, much to the delight, of course, to many, many children who they were allowing to scramble over them and just really making their day. Everybody wants one. The Jeep went on for so many years in its original form, and then after the war, of course, it, like Land Rovers, put a better engine in, with, I said earlier, the overhead inlet and side exhaust. And this is a fine example of the Jeeps that you would have seen round about the Vietnam era. I've no idea how many of these were made, but of the old original type, the Jeep that we remember so well of World War II, there were 600,000 of those built during that period. They certainly set a fashion, didn't they? Now let's have a look at something a bit bigger. Now the Yanks used the GMCs and Studebakers as their big 6x6s for many, many years, and then after the war things get bigger and not more beautiful. But here we have an example of the big rail. These were built well up into the 60s and 70s and are now come onto the home market to these buyers of military vehicles. And what a proud vehicle this is. It's got a multi-fuel engine, but of course the majority of them run them on diesel because it's more economic. And they're turbocharged. And when you put your foot down on one of these, you get a wonderful whistle. And I was very fortunate to have a drive in one of these at a show quite recently. And it's a tough old charger as that one. But styles haven't changed much, have they, since World War II? You know, that one would have fitted in with a World War II vehicle very nicely. Tough, utility, and built for a purpose. These vehicles were also used by the Norwegian Army, and a lot of those have come onto the British sales now, and they're being lapped up by these military vehicle collectors. And here at this show was a wonderful display of a Vietnam setup, very authentic, right down to the cooking utensils. Now it's time for the half tracks to do their lap or two now. There's the big International. Remember what I said earlier about the different shaped mudguards on the White Scout car? Well, perhaps we can show you that. When into the ring comes the white half track. Did you see it go by there then? See the flanged mudguards, that's the only external difference, but of course the engine's different. That had the side valve engine built by Hercules. Well-known American engine producer. Same firm that built the big diesel engines for the Diamond D tank transporters. Another lap with the Abbott.
There's a small Scorpion, a very small, here it is. Built by Alvin.
Now another of our British built vehicles, the Scorpion. Another very quick armoured vehicle. Type of vehicle that we have seen used in the Falklands.
I believe these were used in the Falklands.
Very easy to drive these vehicles, provided you've got room, of course, but the gearboxes are mainly automatic. Back again to our little ferret. These sort of vehicles are known as scout cars, armoured scout cars that would have been used for forward reconnaissance in conjunction with the tank regiment. Ah, here's something a bit bigger in the armoured line now. This is the, it's known as an M24, built by Cadillac and Massey Harris, with two Cadillac V8 engines in, 110 brake horsepower each. It was known as the Chaffee. Used towards the end of World War II, it was introduced first of all in 1943. And these two were used in the Korean War. It was regarded only as a light tank because it merely had a 75mm tank gun. Great fun performing on these fields, isn't it? Here it is, the honey that we saw unloaded at the beginning of our show, showing its ability. Always a popular ring display, this one. You see more people come along to watch the tanks go round than anything else, especially the kids, of course. Built for destruction and built to destroy, and is it lovely to think that now all they do is entertain. It's a nice thought. And of course there's always plenty to talk about, plenty to tell your stories about, what vehicles you have, and not only vehicles, we got the guns as well here. I'm going to have one of them when I grow up, he said. Look good in your front garden, wouldn't it? No need to worry, they've all been deactivated. But what sort of enthusiasts are these people? The money they spend and they collect, and they bring a lot of enjoyment, because a show like this is just one big military museum for a weekend in a rather attractive setting too. Even buy a box of spare parts. And a siren to wake them all up in the morning.
Green, Nanny. Where's the wind green?
Lightweights of all sorts there. And the Land Rover, look how well equipped that is. Even the little chore horse there to pull the toggle rope, start it up and charge your batteries. All military equipment. What's nice about it too is you can go up and have a darn good look at it. It isn't sort of behind a glass plate window or behind a fence. No, don't shout fire. Everything's under control. I don't think that's an army kettle, though. There's enough equipment here of all sorts to start another war, but that's not the intention. It's just to come along and enjoy a very pleasant weekend. Whether you have a gun or a 3-tonner like the old Bedford RL up there. Now that lorry had a lot of history. Another interesting truck, that's the Austin K9, post-war design, based on the Austin Lodestar style of commercial fame. But these are 4-wheel drive, 4-speed gearbox, 2-speed axle. Most of these were, as this one is, built as a radio communications van. It's also displaying its 3-group number plate on the front, on the wing there, that was popular and common with the post-war army vehicles. They had to put a number plate back on them again. And here's Big Ben. That's the Thornycroft Big Ben. It's a rare sight, this. Not many of these produced. Big 10-ton Arctic built for the British Army in post-war years by Thornycroft of Basingstoke. Thornycroft's own engine in it. A mobile hospital. But hospitality was the purpose this weekend, of course. That was his place of accommodation. He certainly had plenty of room. Drove it all the way to the show. Must have been an expensive trip. But they do it for the love of it, these military vehicle enthusiasts. And the Scammell Explorer. Now, Scammell's made a great tank recovery vehicle in its pioneer during the 20s and 30s and 40s. Then after the war, redesigned it to put a front axle drive on, as well as the single drive four-wheel setup at the back. It's only got one differential and rocking beams. Ingenious bit of machinery, this. Now, whereas they used the diesel engine built by Gardners in the old Pioneer, they put a petrol engine in the post-war vehicle built by Meadows that would do about 2.5 to the gallon. But nevertheless, she's a tough old brute, is the Scammell Explorer, and I've seen these performance shows, and I've seen them down at Bovington going over the rough, and there's nothing will stop it. Another firm to be proud of in this country, but now extinct, was the AEC, the Associated Equipment Company from Southall in Middlesex, and they built this huge 10-tonner for the British Army, the Militant. Their own engine, massive great brute of a truck, quite quick for its size too in post-war years. Some of these were built as recovery vehicles too, and many left the army and went on as recovery vehicles, and some still used today on heavy bus recovery or some big heavy haulage firm. Fantastic bit of machinery, the AEC Militant. Another of our Explorers. Note the unusual radiator top. These were always known, and their predecessor, the Pioneer, known as the coffee pot Scammells. They're in sand colouring as the Land Rover lightweight portable, complete with trailer. I doubt very much if that's fitted with power steering. Another of our Land Rovers, this time in ambulance form. They turn out in every guise imaginable. Used for so many purposes, whether they be ambulance, personnel carriers, light gun tractors. And there, going back in the early days of the war, little Austin open top coupe that was quite often used by officers long before we imported the Jeep. Another one with 11th Armoured Diff markings, and the Royal Artillery red and blue square there on the right. Little Austin staff car. And now we've got one of my old favourites coming now. This is the Bedford QL, this particular one, the QLB, which was the Lytac Bofors version of this ever popular favourite of them all. Any of the soldiers who drove the Bedford QL will tell you how much they enjoyed driving it. It was a nice drive, it was a nice view up there. It was four-wheel drive, that reliable 28 horsepower Bedford engine. Great vehicle this, and a fine example, once again done up in a sign we've seen a lot lately, the 11th Armoured. And here an unusual one, this is the more 1000 staff car, done up as with an armoured div flash on the front. Your all tank regiment badge. Common sight during World War II was the Dodge ambulance, built by Dodge of America. It came over here in their thousands, and a welcome sight they were too on the battlefields of France. 6-cylinder side valve engine, 4-speed gearbox, 4-wheel drive. And that was well worth filming, wasn't it? The big Leyland Hippo. Leyland of Lancashire, another big vehicle manufacturer who supplied a lot of these 10-tonners to the British Army. Their own engine, Leyland engine. Sweet engine too. Tick over like a big clock, they do. Not a 6-wheel drive as the AC was. It's merely a 6x4, just 4-wheel drive. And still they come. The lightweight 1-ton Morris of post-war design, built by Morris Commercials. Note the similarity between the cab and the civilian cab. These were merely sort of militarized civilian vehicles, hoisted up a little bit higher due to their 4-wheel drive chassis. And once again, our big reel. Getting very popular, these, among the collectors. I love it when they put their foot down and give us a good whistle from that turbocharged diesel engine in there. Our little ferret. This time with the driver's aperture closed, but he can no doubt look through his periscope and see where he's going. We hope so anyway. Another one built by Dodge of America. This is known as the WC-62. It's a 6-wheel version of their old weapons carrier that was very commonly used by the Yanks over here. It's for cargo and personnel use. You see, 6-wheel drive, 6-cylinder side valve engine, producing about 92 brake horsepower. And, well, what's a parade without the duck? This is the GMC DUKW, known as the duck because of its amphibious use. It's basically the same chassis as the 2.5-ton Jimmy, the GMC that we saw so many of over here when the Yanks came in '42. Same 6-cylinder overhead valve engine, but this has also got a drive to a propeller at the back to make it amphibious and driven through the water. Used on many a beach landing during World War II, and a very useful vehicle they were. Some of the crowd here scratching their head and wondering, did we ever see them over here when we were children? I expect so. And now one of the old famous original Jeeps, be it a Ford or be it a Willys. That we can't tell from this angle. One has to look down through the radiator grille to see the difference in shape of the cross member of the chassis. That's if you want to. Well, what a wonderful display this is. Even to the later Land Rover, complete with its camouflage netting. It's been a fine parade, a fine show. Isn't it nice to see these military vehicles on parade?